voice stopped before you got to the end.
The dying man jumped out of his bed, ran straight to the piano and finished it.
Couldn't cope with an unfinished melody.
Neither can you, it's why you come.
Hello friends, it's been a very long time. First, a disclaimer, this is not actually another episode of TJLC Explained. While I have come back to try to make the channel feel more resolved for myself and for you, hopefully, that is not going to be by trying to convince you that the show is headed in a particular direction, or trying to convince you that it's not, for that matter, so just in case you were worried about that. I ask that you hear me out on this video. I think at least one of the projects I've been working on should appeal to you regardless of your current stance on BBC Sherlock. I felt like after 5 years, I couldn't really just start uploading things again. I owed you a bit of an explanation of where I went. I have actually tried to record this a couple of times now, and I think I just keep getting bogged down in the details too much, so we're going to try and keep things relatively light here. The really broad overview is that the reason I never made anything else in 2017 when Series 4 of BBC Sherlock came out is that I felt like I had failed people, that no matter what I tried to make, it could not be good enough to make up for what I had done, the pain and the heartbreak I had led people to feel. And I know there are some of you who are going to say that I am taking on too much guilt with that, and you may have a point. I think the degree to which I have let that guilt take over my life in some ways these last years hasn't exactly been healthy, but I have thought about this a lot, and I think that even if getting people's hopes up had just been an unintended side effect of my work, I probably still would have felt bad, to be honest with you, but it wasn't just a side effect. That was the whole point. I was making the channel to get people excited, to get their hopes up for this thing that I felt sure was about to happen when I didn't actually know that, and I should not have done that. And that led to a lot of people, a lot of young people, experiencing a tremendous disappointment, and I have regretted that every day since. And if that is you, I am so sorry that I let you down, and I cannot tell you how much I wish I could go back and do things differently. That has been a tremendous source of pain and shame for me these last several years, and I think I was just content to more or less pretend it had never happened rather than trying to deal with it in a healthy way. You've probably seen that the channel has been taken down a couple of times over the years, and that is the main reason why. That feeling of having failed people, feeling like I was leading to more suffering by leaving my work up, and then I would change my mind and feel like taking my work down was more harmful, and I would feel guilty that I could never make anything else, and then I'd be sure that if I made anything else it would be wrong, and it just felt like every choice I could make was the wrong one, that I had made such a huge mistake that there was nothing I could do that would make it right. And I know that even what I'm working on now cannot entirely fix things, and even if it could, I am 5 years too late. But I think I ultimately decided that I had to try to finish this, because running away from this has not been healthy for me. So you're probably wondering what made me change my mind and come back to this channel. Long story short, a couple months ago, I ended up rewatching BBC Sherlock. Someone close to me who knows about this channel suggested that I did. They said they thought it would be helpful for me to revisit it after all this time, and they were right. It has been helpful. The way I had been remembering things the show, all of it. I think I had just been magnifying all the worst pieces because it had ended so badly. I just convinced myself that the whole thing had been bad. And watching the show again, I could still find things that I could enjoy in it, and it made me feel a little bit better about having liked it to begin with. That gave me the courage to try to rewatch some of the videos on this channel, something I had been terrified to do for years. So I logged in and watched a couple episodes, completely convinced that no matter which episodes I picked, they were going to seem like nonsensical rambling to me now. And while I would absolutely change things and do things differently if I could, it was a lot less bad than I was afraid it would be. I could still see the appeal that that version of the story would have. I still find that version of the story appealing. And if I'm being completely honest, it reminded me that it had been within the realm of possibility that the show might have gone in that direction in series 4. And I guess ultimately revisiting this made me realize how silly I was being by pretending that this hadn't been a huge part of my life, that it hadn't shaped me as a person and as a storyteller when it so obviously has. And so for the first time, I asked myself if I wanted to try to find a way to live with having made this channel, to accept it and be okay with it, because pretending I hadn't made it doesn't magically go back in time and unmake it. You know, it happened regardless of whether or not I'm okay with it. Might as well try and find a way to come to terms with it. I asked myself, what, if anything, could I do to make that easier? And I had the same two ideas for projects that I had all the way back in 2017 that ultimately never ended up getting made to try to make things feel more resolved at the time. Those projects were a complete rewrite of Series 4, essentially finishing the story the way I wish it had gone, and one final video for this channel trying to come to terms with the Series 4 we actually got. And I have tried to make both of those projects dozens of times over the years, but I finally felt like I was approaching it in a healthier way. So I decided to give it one last try to see if it was possible to finish this channel so it wouldn't be perpetually haunting me. And if I couldn't, no big deal. I just thought I'd give it one more try. And I'm very happy to report that after working on those projects for 2 months now, it is looking very likely that they will both be finished this time. Definitely the first one, at least. So that first rewrite is essentially my alternate ending for BBC Sherlock, the version we would have gotten if TJLC Explained had been correct, essentially. I think even if you're still waiting for Series 5, this story might still appeal to you. One of my beta readers is someone who is very much hoping for Series 5, seems to like the story okay so far. I have intentionally included a lot of the TJLC reading into the story, so in addition to things like who the villains are, you will find things like the drink code, phone is heart, food is intimacy, mirror characters, elephants, the works. I did give myself a few restrictions for writing this project. The first was that I had to resolve everything that had been presented in the story up until the end of The Abominable Bride. So that meant finding solutions for things like Moriarty's return, Redbeard, Mary's pregnancy, and the other one that I found satisfying. The other restriction was that the 3 episode titles for Series 4 had to remain the same. So my version of Series 4 also consists of a version of The Six Thatchers, The Lying Detective, and The Final Problem, but that is basically where the overlap ends. I did that for a couple of reasons. I think the main one is that that choice makes it so that if I could take this story and send it back to myself in January of 2017, I think it would have actually helped me feel better, and I hope it can do the same for you. At time of recording, I have outlined all 3 episodes and have completed first drafts for both The Six Thatchers and The Lying Detective, and I should at the very least be most of the way through the first draft of The Final Problem by the time you're seeing this video. For reference, the drafts so far are clocking in between 22 and 24K words each, so it's gonna be a little bit long. When the first chapter of that story is available, which I think should be in late October or early November, I'll make a video here providing a little bit more additional information about the project. I have ideas for a couple of other projects leading into that as well. For example, I suspect that I am not the only person who had not seen BBC Sherlock in years after Series 4 came out. So if you would like a refresher before going into the alternate series 4, if you decide to read it, I plan to make a mega previously on montage that will show you the scenes that end up being important in the rewrite version. Alternatively, if you would like to be very thorough, you could just rewatch episodes 41 through 47 of TJLC Explained. That will give you basically the entire reading I have going into the ideal series 4. I'm also considering recording my own podfic, but I have absolutely no experience with that and have no idea what I'm doing. But if you'd be interested in that, please let me know in the comments and I will start looking into it. With everything else I have going on though, that probably would not be released until sometime next year. So as I said, the first chapter of that series 4 rewrite will be released in late October or early November. I plan to release chapters weekly in 9 parts, so it should all be out by the end of the year. Once that is finished, I plan to release a final analysis video on BBC Sherlock for this channel, essentially serving as a retrospective on the series, how I view it now, and how I have made some peace with it 5 years later. Like I mentioned at the start, that video would not be trying to prove or disprove any particular reading of the show, just trying to come to terms with it as it currently exists. Mostly to see if it's possible. I think it is. The deadline I've given myself for that video is January 15th of 2022. So apparently I was working with a 5-year deadline. I just didn't realize it until 6 months before it was here. If you'd like to hear more from me while I work on those 2 projects, I am back on Tumblr and on Twitter, Victorian Pining at both places, as well as on AO3, and you can find links to those in the description below. Additionally, now that I've made this, and you know that I have genuine projects going, and anything else I release on this channel isn't going to be an automatic disappointment, there are a few videos in the archives of this channel that were either originally released on a separate channel or on Patreon that I would like to make public now, so you'll probably see those coming out over the course of the next few weeks. Again, in addition to those supportive videos for the Series 4 rewrite and for the final retrospective. As I said, I know I am 5 years late, but I genuinely hope that these projects can be as cathartic for you when you read or watch them as it has been so far for me creating them. Honestly, the process of making them has genuinely been sort of healing for me, as silly as that may sound, and I hope that if you're still hurt over this, these projects can help you find some closure too. In the meantime, I thank you for your patience while I work and over the last few years. I am sorry, in addition to everything else, that it has taken me this long to come back and finish things, but I hope it ends up being worth the wait. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the very best. Bye.